Welcome back. In our today's lesson, we'll be creating a modern login system using Bootstrap 5. So on the screen, it's what we'll be creating right from the scratch. So I'll be creating an index file here, which is our index.html. Then I'll introduce the boilerplate for HTML5. So in here, I can just change this to login. Then I will be linking my Bootstrap here. So for the sake of this project, we'll be creating this using a Bootstrap Cdn. So that means my services all will be online. So for me to do that, we have to go straight to our browser here, get Bootstrap 5. So I can open this, then I'll copy the CDN, but you can download it and link it locally on your machine. So but for this, I'll just get the CDN online and then paste it here. So this is the CDN of Bootstrap Online. So if you are new to this, you can watch our introductory part on how to set up Bootstrap locally on your machine. So now Bootstrap is linked in my project. So what I want to do here is I want to add an additional CSS file here, which will be my own custom CSS. So I would create a folder which is CSS, and I'll give it a style.css here. So I think I can click on this item. So you see, since it's not there, I can just create it right now. It's going to create that for us. See, it's creating a folder and then a file style.css right inside the folder for me. So right now, before we create anything in Bootstrap, we have to put it in a container. So for this particular project, we're putting it inside a container fluid because we want everything expands to the end. So the first thing we want to create here is we want to create a row div. So inside this row, we have two columns, which is the first column and then the second column, which is here. So now the first column, we can do div.column minus md. We can do -5 times 2. So here I can change this second one to 7 so that we have a complete 12. So on this, we can have our item set to, we have the sign in. So we can put that in a h1, then sign in. So set here, we can put a paragraph to say kindly fill in your credentials here. So on the second column, we have different inputs. We have the email inputs, we have the passwords, and we have the show password here, then the sign up. So in here, we'll start with the h1. So account sign in. So after that, let's quickly create a form. So inside the form here, I'll be creating div.mb -3. So if you're coming from Bootstrap 4, you notice that the form group has been removed. So we're using the mb margin bottom -3. So I'll create an input of type, let's say text. So I will tell the user a placeholder of, let's say, username. And then I think let's also give it a label of username. So here I'll be using username here. So I think we're done with this. I can do that. I can duplicate this. You can use Alt Shift then down to duplicate. So here we're changing the label for. So I'll show you how we can change this for every item we're having here. Click on the Alt on your keyboard. That is if you're using VS Code. I would also click here, then click here. So at this point, I would delete everything here, then change it to label for password. So here I think I can make this a capital letter. So here placeholder, we can have a capital letter here. So after doing this, I think we have to apply the class to this our input. So I would give this a class of form minus control, and then here we also give it a class of form minus control. So if I save this and then we open our page, so I think I'll be using a live server, so let me just open it locally so that when we refresh we see all the effects. So I'll open this our file here. So you see we have these two items here. So I have the first column and then the second column here. So let's try giving this a background color and see what happens. So if I'm giving this a background color of, let's say, BG, that's the whole of this. Let's give it a BG minus dark. You see what happens. This is what happens. So if I refresh this, I get this dark color here. But we want this dark to get to this extreme end here. So what I want us to do is, I want us to refactor this code in such a way that we are going to have a row inside each of this column. So for example here, I can create a div.row again, div.row. Then I can create a div.column. So let's say we're giving it a column of size 6. So I can paste that here. So let me add the curly brace for this. So that means I'm creating a row inside this particular column. So the simple trick here is that since we want this to be of size 100, what I want to do here is we're going to introduce our view height of minus 100. This is a class that is predefined in Bootstrap 5. So if we save this, we might also want to add it. So let's refresh and see what happens. You see, I now have the 100% for this particular height. So let's make this text here visible by giving this particular parent a text minus white. So let's say we are giving that a text minus white. Refresh, you see, this our item, it's now visible. So what I want to do here is I want to center this our item here. So on a very good day, we can use the text centered. But since we're having the row here, all we can do is we can use the justify minus content minus center here. So this is what happens. If I refresh this, you see it pushes this to the center. Then if I want it to be at the center here, because we're already having a height of 100, so what we're going to do here is we're going to align items, align minus items minus center here. Save this. So if we refresh this item here, I think I have to also give this a height of 100 VH. That's for my column here. So because we're having an inner row here, so for this particular align items now, if you notice after refreshing this, we're not having an effect. So what I want to do here is I want to give this row also a height of minus 100%. This height is also available in the Bootstrap 5 class. So if we refresh this, you see we have our sign in here. So now we want to deal with this other section. So here we can come in here, and then we are going to wrap everything here in a row. So I'll cut this div.row again. So here div.column minus md minus 6. So I can now paste everything here. So now let's introduce the v, the h minus 100 here. That's giving it a height of 100. Then we can add our justify content center, then align items center. So if we come here and refresh this, you see we now have this our item to the center here. So the next thing in our mind is to create a button. So we want to create a button. So I'll come in here and then create the button. So I would put it in a div, then put my button, button.btn minus primary. So now I can just say sign in here. So after the sign in, I think we can now see the button here to see what we're having. Okay, we have our sign in here. So in Bootstrap 5, they've removed the btn block. So for us to have a block btn, we have to give this div a class of d minus grid. So now after doing this, we're going to have a block button. So you notice in the initial design here, which is this, all these sections are flat. There is no border radius. So what I'll do here is I would come in here for each of this item. I'll give it a class of rounded minus 0 to remove the border radius, rounded minus 0. You can watch our utility videos to see the different variations of this rounded minus 0. So what we're doing here is we're setting the border radius to 0. So you notice we now have the flat design here. So I'll go back to my code to add another paragraph here for not yet registered. Not yet registered. So now if they are not yet registered, we want to direct them to a login, register.html. So we can put our register here. So now we're telling the user, okay, they can actually register from here. So let's give this paragraph a class and then a margin top of -3 and see what it looks like here. So we're having our items here. So the next thing I want us to do is we want to create a back button, but let's handle these items here. So I think my text here, I want them to be centered. So I want the sign in to be at the center. So let's deal with that. So I'll come in here. After this text white, we can give all our text alignment to center. So let me show you what happens. It means if I refresh this, you see this is at the center. So I want to apply the same thing to this sign in here. So to my sign in, that's the h1, I can give it a class of text minus center. And Bootstrap also introduced a display. So we can give it a display of -6 here. So if we save this and refresh, it's going to automatically style our input. You see, that's reduced the font weight for us. So now on this our original design, we have an image here. So let's also add the show password here. So here at the bottom, we want to add the show password in our password input here. So I could do this. So I can come here, I'll put it in a paragraph P, then I would put a show passwords, but then I'll create an input type of checkbox. So here we have an input type of checkbox. So I'll create a small tag, then put a show password. So if we save it, actually I think we should be able to see an effect here right now immediately. So we want to give this a margin top of -2. So I'll give this class a margin top of -2. Save that, and if I refresh, you see we have this space in here. So now from this our example here, we have an image here, and then we also have a customized background color here. So let's go back to our original design. We want to change this image. So I picked that image from pixels. So I'll search for pixels.com. So what you need to search is a login. Yeah. So I'll search for login. So let's wait, depending on the speed of your network. Okay, I think the image is here. I could just download this, and I could show in folder and copy it. I could just show in folder and then copy this particular image here. Copy. So this time around I'll be taking it to our project here. So let's close this. I'll be putting it in our project here. So let's create an image folder. So we can put an image folder and then we place that here. So I think I'm okay with that. So let's rename this. So I'll just name it login. So let's close this. So now on this our personal CSS we created, we're going to create a .bg minus image, a background image class. So here, after creating the background image class, we want to style it. So here we'll give it a background minus image. So we provide the URL. So inside the URL, we're providing the img. So we can go one step backward. So img slash, so login dot this. So now if we save this, let's see if we're having any changes here. So let's come back to our design. Okay, this is our design here. So let's refresh this. So you see we're having no change. So that means we have to come back to our code to apply that bg image on the first column. So this is my first column. Instead of bg dark, we're changing it to bg img. So let's refresh this and see. Okay, so we have the image here, but we need to style this particular image here. So now what we want to do here is I want to use the background size, background minus size, and then here I want it to cover everywhere. So let's save it and see if we get a visible portion of the picture. So you see we now have the image here. So let's go back again and do the background position. So I want to center this. So I want this centered. So if we come back here, refresh this and see, you see it has centered this our image here. So depending on the kind of image we're having, that's the resolution. I always use the background repeat and then set it to no repeat. Background minus repeat, then I set it to no repeat. So that won't show us much changes because our background is not originally repeating. So what we want to do here is we want to give this last section this particular color here. So we'll come back to this, a rush here, so I can create a new .bg, let's say indigo. So I'll give this a background color, then I think I always go with the color. So here a hashtag, so I'm using 364, then we use FC7. So I think that should give us the BG indigo. So we have to come to the column here, that's this other column, and give it a BG minus indigo. Please, we're able to do all of this because we've already linked our style sheet here. So let's refresh this and see. Okay, now we have our design. So but what we need now is to change the color of all of this text at once. So for us to achieve that, I'm going to come in here. I think from here I can give them a text minus white, that's from the parent, so that it will affect every other child there. So you see we have our text minus white. Then coming in here, you notice we have this color which is a warning. So what we want to do here is we're going to apply a bootstrap class to it. So I'll come in here on the register. I'm going to give it a class of link minus warning here. Then I'm going to save this. So if we refresh this, I think we have this, but we want to remove the underline. So we can create a customized class for that. So I'm creating a .link. Then I'll give it a text decoration. I'll set it to none. So at this point, if I should come in here and call in the link we just created, and then we refresh, you notice that it's long gone. So we can actually center this our text here, text minus center to the screen. So if we want to add the back button, So we can do the same thing. I can create another paragraph here, a p tag, so I can push that here. So we can have a back, so we can create a small tag that will take in the back. So here I can create just back here. So we can give this a class. So we want this a little bit bold, so we're going to use font weight minus bold. This is also a Bootstrap class. Then if we save this, I think, let's see how it looks. So if I refresh here, you see I have a bold here, so I have to give it a class of text minus warning. But then we should be able to tell the user that, okay, this should be able to change to cursor once we hover over this. So we're coming here to create a new class. I'll call it .pointer. So we want to change the cursor type, cursor, to pointer. So we're going to apply the pointer to this particular item here, pointer. So if I should come in here and refresh, so if we hover over this, you see we get a pointer here. So once the user click on this, it should be able to take the user back. So I'm going to embed a little JavaScript here on click, so we can do history dot, we're taking the user back to wherever they are coming from. So we save this here. So I think this should work perfectly. So let's align this also to center, text minus center. So with that, this brings us to the end of our tutorials. You see how we can easily create a modern login system with Bootstrap 5. So we'll be creating other new videos, but if you're new to the Bootstrap, you can visit our other videos to learn about the utility classes.